ABA is Applied Behavioral Analysis. And we're not professionals, but we are parents. We have 5 kids, 2 who are autistic. And we're excited to share with you today what ABA looks like in our home.
So let's see if we can do this video before it starts raining. When ABA first came out in 1960, it looked a lot different than it does now.
And understandably, some people are confused about what ABA really consists of.
Yeah, a lot of people on our channel and other similar channels have expressed concern about ABA and, the terrible things that it does and all this. And so we really want to, in this video, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything ABA.
Yeah, and we want you to decide for yourself, is ABA good for your child? Is it not? That's your decision. But hopefully these examples where you can see firsthand will help you make that decision.
So here are 3 things that ABA shouldn't be, and also 3 things ABA should be. So the first thing ABA should not be is aversive. So when it first came out in the 1960s, there was punishment involved and it was fairly aversive. Still, some of that carries through today a little bit. And so you've got to really work with your provider to make sure that you're not doing that type of ABA. The nice thing about doing the ABA, especially in the house, we can watch it, right? And if we don't like what's happening, we can change it. And that has happened.
And we do that.
And we do that often, yeah.
Put in the comments your experience with ABA.
So typically we have our therapists who are there all the time with the kids, right? And they're really good, and they've built a relationship, and they'll do things for them because they love them, and there's a good relationship there. And that's really what it comes down to too with your therapist. It all, like, people will say, is ABA bad or good? Well, it depends on who's doing it. Because there's good therapists and there's not good therapists. We've had both, and we've asked some to leave, and they've and never use them again. So you do have to find someone who works well with your child. We had a sub the other day, and Simon just started screaming, and so I came upstairs and was kind of watching what was happening. The therapist was pushing him to do the same thing over and over and over again. ABA, there is repetitiveness involved, right? But it can be done in a way that isn't annoying, right? Some of the autistic community that have reached out to us and mentioned ABA and stuff, they do the same thing over and over, and it's so frustrating. But still, I had to intervene in that one and just say, yeah, let's do something different. He was getting beyond frustrated. It was becoming aversive to him. And I was just like, yeah, let's stop. Let's change direction. Let's do something different. I just use that as an example, but that's something that's happened, a time or two. And we've been able to give that feedback and change. And the companies that we've worked through have always been great to change and to modify and to do what we want. So, that's the biggest thing. As you look at doing ABA, just keep in mind, you can make it what you want it to be. And they're always really willing to do that.
Another thing that ABA should not be is it shouldn't be this program to try and make your child not look autistic. First of all, there is no look of autism, okay? And then there also is no normal. Normal is very subjective and relative to whatever the culture of the day is. And our unique normal may look different to other people, but does that really matter? So let's say my child is obsessed with trains and he maybe walks or stands a little funny or different. I am not gonna want my child to have ABA that tries to get rid of those little quirky things. That's not important. I don't want my child to be focused on, I need to fit into society. That is not the goal. The goal of ABA and any kind of therapy to help your child should be to help them be independent and have more say in their life, have more autonomy in their life. That's the goal. A better way to do ABA and any kind of therapy is to take things that a child is obsessed with or really wants to talk to you about and listen to them and help them feel understood. And then you can take those things that they really like, things that really motivate them, and use them in the therapy. And use them to your advantage to help motivate them to do therapy and to learn and to grow. Our son Ezra is overstimulated visually. And so because of that, he has a really difficult time looking people in the eye. It makes him really uncomfortable. And he's able to connect with people socially in different ways. Like you see here, he's holding my hand. So he does interact with us in his own way. That is less stressful and less overwhelming. We don't make him look people in the eye. We don't stress him out because we know how uncomfortable it makes him. We want him to know that if he wants to look at us, that's his decision and he's welcome to, but he doesn't have to. We're not going to force him to do that. So ABA therapy should not be teaching your child how to mask. Now, if they decide that they want to mask in public for whatever reason, then that's their decision. It's not important to look normal. It's really not. We don't look normal wherever we go. We actually traveled quite a bit in an RV with 5 kids, and we traveled the whole United States visiting all the national parks.
Sold our house,
yes,
moved into the RV full time. It was pretty intense.
Yep,
So-
and while we were going on hikes and visiting these national parks, we would almost always have Ezra on a toddler leash. And there are many reasons. One reason is we didn't want him to walk off a cliff. We didn't want him to leave. He's a fast runner.
He has no
He has
ability,
no awareness of safety.
Yeah, awareness of danger or anything. So he would have just ran and see ya, like he's gone.
Ezra will run and never look back sometimes. He'll just decide that he wants to run and he'll just run up a hill. And of course we care about his safety and we care that he's with us. We want him to participate in the activity, whatever we're doing with the family. We want him to be with us. There are plenty of people out there that have given us dirty looks and been like, and even voiced their opinions against the toddler leash. That happened one time at Smoky Mountains as well.
Yeah, so make sure to check out this video where we rank all the national parks if you're into the outdoors, because it's pretty cool. But some of the awesome places that are in the nation here. So ABA should not be focused on getting your child to stop stimming. If you don't know what that is, or you want to see our stimming video, check that out here. So even when Ezra was having an issue with like hitting his head on the wall and stimming in a negative way, we wanted him to stop. We tried to change the environment. So we actually got him a safety bed that works much better so he can't do that anymore. And you can check that video out here. Stimming it's a natural thing that we think that all of us really do a little bit of. And to try and suppress it, it's really not helpful. But yeah, the focus of ABA should not be to stop stimming. And we help our therapists know that that's the way we feel and explain that to them.
Yeah, because we had an experience one time, and this was quite a while ago, I want to say like 5 years ago with Ezra. There's this one therapist who I saw and I couldn't believe what she was doing. She was took both of her hands and was holding Ezra's little hands down on his knees. I just interrupted her. I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, well, one of his programs says to hold his hands down so he doesn't flap his hands. First of all, I feel like that's abusive. To be like, a little 3-year-old can't flap his hands when he's happy. So I told her, nope, never again. We don't do that. We don't forcefully stop our children from stimming.
We post every day of our unique normal. Please consider subscribing.
There are certain stims that might hurt other people or hurt them. That's a different story. We try to replace the stim. We try to change the environment, things like that. One other thing that is super important is the point of ABA, the point of any therapy, right, is so that the child can learn. We want them to learn. I want him to grow. I want him to figure things out. I want him to be like, oh yeah, I can do that on my own. I can communicate. And what was interesting is that he actually did the puzzle better. He did it faster. He was better at it when he was able to stim. So think about that. All right, this is our number 1 of what ABA therapy should look like. ABA therapy should look like speech therapy. You can see here, the therapists do so much speech therapy. I don't know if they even realize that it actually is speech therapy. They will copy the sounds that our kids make and try and enter their world that way. And they'll teach them through observation and through example. So as you can see here, a lot of therapy just looks exactly like speech therapy would. Simon will copy the sounds that the therapist makes depending on what animal they're pointing at, and he thinks it's fun. It's a fun game. Simon's learning his vowels now, and these certain sounds are helping him to be able to communicate.
I,
O,
O,
A,
A,
E.
E,
Good job! My goodness, I didn't know you were so good at that. What are you saying? What?
Ku, Ka.
Kuak, like a little duck. In a very natural way, and they do that through play therapy. They play games with him to help motivate him to speak. So Ezra has a more difficult time with verbal communication because of his apraxia of speech. But we're really excited with the progress he's made on his iPad. He's been able to communicate through his iPad things that he wants and things he doesn't want. And Ezra actually went trick-or-treating with his iPad so that he could press a button to say trick-or-treat for him. You can see that video here. It was a lot of fun. And remember, speech therapy is not limited to verbal communication. It even starts out with back and forth play. Playing with a ball, going back and forth. That is the beginning of speech therapy. Talk to any speech therapist. We do a lot of that in ABA.
So the second thing that ABA should be helping your kids to gain functional skills. Ultimately, we want them to have the most independence that they possibly can, the greatest autonomy. Things like eating, right? Like just we're trying to help Ezra learn how to eat, how to go to the potty, like all those types of things, tying your shoes. Those are all functional things that ABA can really help with. It's a repetitive thing. When Ezra was learning how to crawl and to walk, I mean, it just took so much repetition and so many times to do that. And so that's where ABA really comes in, and a therapist can really come in to help.
I remember when Ezra was first starting ABA and he didn't know how to go down a slide. And it just seems so crazy to me that like he didn't know how to use the slide. He would see the other kids and peers go down a slide, walk up the steps and go down it. And most neurotypical kids would look at that and go, oh, I want to try that, and just kind of know how to do it. But it took 3 months of ABA to help Ezra go down a slide. You can see the video here of him finally doing it, and you can see how happy he is.
Yay! Good job! Good job, baby!
The last thing that ABA therapy should look like is occupational therapy. We had occupational therapists come in and talk about sensory diet. So we always talk about sensory diet with our ABA therapists. And it is such a blessing to be able to intervene those types of sensory diet with the therapy. It makes the therapy so much more effective. Simon is really motivated by this piano. It makes lots of sounds. So sensory wise, that's a big deal for him. He likes the sounds it's making. It's creative and it's fun, playful thing. So they will practice speech therapy with this sensory item. Another thing that Simon loves to do is play in water. And so they use that as a motivator. Our therapist will actually use little toys, animals, and cars, and he'll wash the cars. You can see here, he's really into washing this car. He can practice his fine motor skills, and he can have this sensory input of playing and splashing in water and bubbles. This really boils down to, does my therapist know my child well enough to know when he needs a break and when he needs some sensory diet things, when he needs to play with things with his hands, when he needs maybe some compressions. Sometimes your child might want to have that compression feeling of a weighted blanket or a weighted vest. Like those types of things, that's occupational therapy, being able to really regulate their body through these different sensory experiences. So when an ABA therapist is aware of the sensory needs of the child, they can help create an environment that's more conducive to their needs and make that therapy way more effective. And here's our video about the difference between speech delay and autism. And here's our autism playlist, and it's raining right now. We need to get these cameras inside.